Hi everyone, welcome back to your weekly Pilates mobility video with myself, Peter. So before we get started, as ever, I'd like to thank Trainify for sponsoring this workout. Head over to trainify.tv, trainify.me, and you can check out the links to any of the offers that they have currently going on. You'll get directed to the YouTube page where you get 6 days worth of free workouts, including high intensity interval training, yoga, Pilates, all that good stuff, and get yourself kind of linked up with the best trainer to suit your goals and your needs as well. So for today's session, if you've been kind of following on the last few weeks or so, the main focus has been on mobility. So for today, we're going to work on a little bit of mobility, but also trying to bring in a little bit of core activation with that. So in Pilates realm, and kind of when people start to have an understanding of the Pilates method, core activation is one of those terms that get banded around. So simply meaning that when you've kind of mobilized your body through your joints, you're able to activate the deep stabilizers within your core section of your body, the deep abdominals, the abdominals along the front, our back extensor muscles, and also bringing in the gluteus muscles and our kind of inner thigh muscles as well. So think of those type of areas is what we're going to work on today for getting a little bit of activation in some individual points, and then kind of bringing that together a little bit more within the session. So we'll get started. And for today as well, we're going to use a squidgy ball. So it's not pumped up all the way, something like this, even just a yoga block if you don't have something like this, or maybe just a towel that you can roll up. So it's more just to bring in a little bit of connection, a little bit of feedback when we do certain exercises, ones that by this point you're probably a little bit more familiar with as well. So on our back to begin, and we'll start off with some bridging. So once you get down on your back, find that position, feet hip width distance, bring your heels maybe a little bit closer into your bum, and you're going to place whatever you have as a prop in between your knees. So if it's ball, block, towel, something like that, just to give yourself, as I said, a little bit of feedback, a little bit of connection. Now, rest your arms onto the floor, just either side of your mat, and just hold this position, take a deep breath in. Now as you breathe out, press into your heels, reach your knees forward, and just lift your hips up to the highest point that you can. Take a deep breath in once you're there, and then breathe out, rolling your spine back down. And as you come down, delay your hips, delay your bum. And maybe just test it out. See if you can bring your feet closer to each other so they're slightly less than hip width distance. And then lift back up into the bridge. And see if that gives you a little bit more activation in between your thighs. Breathe in at the top once more. Breathe out. Rolling back down. Good, so we'll do 3 more like this. Again, focusing on getting that articulation through the different sections of the spine, and therefore mobilizing the discs of the spine, bringing in some extension and mobility to the front of your hips. And then also getting that activation. So on this one, as you lift up, just hold it. Keep your knees reaching forward, pressing through your heels, a little bit more connection through your big toe as well as your heels. And just stay here for a few deep breaths. And then the next time you exhale, rolling your spine, coming all the way down. Good, so just a little bit of an introduction to it with using the ball. So we'll take it away just for now. And just stay in this semi-supine position. Feet hip width, knees pointing up to the ceiling. Now, we're going to focus on some arm arc type movements, but with a little bit more individual control. So, back of your pelvis, back of your ribcage, the back of your skull. Those 3 points of contact on the mat. The pinky finger side of your hands is pressing on the floor. And just lift your left arm up and allow the shoulder to kind of sink down onto the mat. Lower it back down again. And the same arm, lift it up without feeling like the ribcage is lifted or displaced. And the same goes for the pelvis and the skull. And then just feel the back of the shoulder blade come down onto the mat a little bit more. Good. So lower that one down, and obviously just do the same in the other arm. Back of the shoulder blade draws down, and then lower it back down onto the floor. And then again, raise that arm up. Back of the shoulder draws down, and then bring your left arm up also. So we're going to hold both arms up this position. Feel like the back of the shoulder blades press a little bit more into the surface of the mat below you. But again, the back of the ribs, back of the pelvis, back of the skull in contact with the mat. And then just from here, as you breathe in, allow the left arm to go overhead. And go to the point where maybe your thumb, or just before it, can reach the floor. Exhale, that arm reaches up to the other arm. Breathe in. The thumb of that right hand can touch the floor, but without displacing where the rib cage and the skull meets the mat. And just do a couple more. So you will notice it's a slightly different range we're working through the shoulder. And if you feel that your ribs want to flare, embrace that, but just keep them pretty heavy. And really feel like the movement is how the upper arm moves away from the shoulder joint and then goes back into it. Nice. And then lower your arms down by your sides. So nothing too crazy with regards to the movement and mobility, but you'll get that sense of how the arm interacts with the joint that holds it. Now, I'm going to take the ball again, place it between your knees. So again, your hands go onto the mat just a little bit wider than hip width. And then this time, press your pelvis into the mat. So create a little bit more sense of heaviness and an anchoring of the pelvis. And as you keep squeezing the ball, you're going to lift your legs up into a tabletop position. Good, so kind of roughly the knees positioned above your hip joint, but most importantly the pelvis presses down. You'll feel a little bit of activation of these muscles along the front, the hip flexors. That's completely expected as our hip is in flexion, but we will start to feel a little something coming into the core and the abdominals, and that's what we want to introduce. So now, play around with what feels like it allows you to balance in the middle of the pelvis against the mat below you. And then once you're there, raise your arms up once more, directly above your chest. Hold this position. And then just like we were doing the arm arcs before, as you breathe in, the arm falls overhead. Breathe out, raise the arm above your chest. Other arm, breathe in, breathe out, return. Good, so we'll aim for 4 more each arm. And with the nature of the legs being up, we're squeezing into the ball, and then we've introduced some movement through the arms. As the arms reach away from the midline at the longest point, that side of the waist and up through the kind of side of the rib cage, you'll feel those kind of abdominal muscles, the oblique muscles that make up the core, all starting to switch on. And as our pelvis remains anchored, our deep core stabilizers are supporting the spine so it stays pretty quiet, pretty still. And as we continue to squeeze into the ball, we'll feel that those inner thigh muscles between the big thigh bones are working a good bit more also. One more here. And then just lower your feet down. And you can just reach for the ball and just pop it down onto the floor again. Alright, so again, it's just an introduction into some core activation. So we should be starting to feel like there's a little bit more work going into there. There's a little bit more muscle activation as well. So now, midsection, a little bit legs. And now we're going to bring it a little bit into the back body. So coming down onto your chest. Actually, what I'll do, got a little bit more room this way. I'll start there. Come down onto your chest and just reach your arms wide to create like a T shape. And your forehead is almost touching the mat, as is your nose. So both of them will be lifted. If your feet are about hip distance, your toes reach away, and then the front of your pelvis presses into the mat. So I'll show the opposite. So as your pelvis lifts, you'll see your bum is kind of sticking up and your lower back arcs. So you want to press the front of the pelvis into the mat so that the curve along the lower back is flattened out somewhat. Now, keep the nose slightly off the mat still, as your forehead is as well. And just with the elbows wide, your forearms are parallel to each other. Take a deep breath in. Exhale out your mouth. And now we're going to move towards Scarecrow, so like a version of it. So keep pressing the pelvis into the mat, and as you breathe in, push through your hands to lift up through your chest. You're still looking to the floor, the back of the neck remains lengthened, and then exhale, lower your chest, and stop just before your nose touches the mat. Go again, breathe in, push the floor away, lift up through the chest and the back of the neck. Exhale, lower yourself down. Let's go for about 3 more. And by now, you should be starting to feel the muscles at the back of you. Back of the shoulders, back of your arms, and those train track muscles down the back of your spine. And it's always important to remember that feeling muscle activation and structures working along your back doesn't have to be negative. So lift up and hold. Stay this position. Option 1, stay exactly where you are. Option 2, can you reach the right arm up and the left arm as well? Hold this position. You'll feel an increase of work along the back of the shoulders and between the shoulder blades. 2 full breaths. And then lower your body back down onto the mat. Nice and done. Good, so come up, give your shoulders a little bit of a roll. And from that position, we're going to work into a clam where we start to get our glute muscles switched on, but also it is a nice mobility stretch along the inner part of the thigh as well. So we're going to start off right side of your body. So your head is supported with your right hand or the upper arm, whatever feels good for you. And then your shoulders, hips and ankles are on the same line as each other. Bring the top knee forward and just bring the top hand onto the hip. So your knees should be stacked, give or take one on top. Heels stay pressing against each other. And just take a deep breath in. Now as you breathe out, you're going to raise the top thigh and knee up to about hip height. But I want you to, with your hand, providing some feedback, keep your hip position pretty still, pretty quiet. Breathe in, lower the leg down. Continue. Exhale, we open. Inhale, lower yourself down. And just do about 4 more here. So you want to start to feel that the muscles around the side and the back of the hip, those big, strong glute muscles, are starting to switch on and work. We're getting that kind of nice opening along the inside of the thigh as well. And our hips and our pelvic position stay pretty still. Hold up through there. Top hand on the hip still, knee pointing to the ceiling, feet stay pressing against each other. And then lower that leg back down. Good. Lower the tap into the glute if you feel those muscles cramping up, if you're not used to working and activating them so much. Let's go other side. So, your head rests into your left hand now. And again, shoulders, hips and ankles all stacked. Knees in front of the body, stacked. Right hand on the hip. Keep the heels together. And as you breathe out, raise the top thigh and knee open. Breathe in to close. And again, let's go for about 3 more. Notice there might be a difference with the mobility that you've got on one leg compared to the other, and how hard it feels for the glutes on one side compared to the other as well.
It's a lot of presentation involved.
Open up and hold. Stay this position. Keep opening the thigh, keep pointing the knee up to the ceiling. And then lower the leg all the way back down. Good. So, again, just from there, I'm going to get you to come up onto your knees. We're going to take it into a thigh stretch exercise, something that I've definitely done in previous sessions, but we're going to use the ball as a little bit of a prop for this one, in the same way that we've used it for other exercises in this session. So just place the ball in between your thighs, quite close to your knees, and just kind of play around with what feels like a good position for you. So the front of your feet press down onto the floor, your shins press into the mat, and then just with your thighs squeezing into the ball, and you will feel that activation around here. And as well as that, because we've just kind of switched on the glutes, you'll probably feel a little bit more connection around here than you ordinarily would. Now, stay as you are, front hand onto the pelvis, feel like it's kind of pushing forward, back hand onto the pelvis, feel like your tailbone is pointing and tucking slightly between the legs. That will bring a little bit more connection here as well. So one hand to the rib cage rather along the front, the other hand sits in below. And just keep that connection. Take a deep breath in. Now we're going to move into thigh stretch. Exhale. Hinge at your knees, lean back. Breathe in. Spring back up. Let's do 4 more. Don't go the same range as me if you don't feel stable or if it doesn't feel great anywhere in the body. There's a lot going on with this one. Inner thigh activation, glutes working to stabilize around your hips and pelvis, core muscles, abdominals, and the back muscles as well. So tying all that connection of the core together. Come back and hold. Option 1, stay this position with that deep stretch along the thighs as well. They will be burning. If you can, your arms reach out in front. Stay here. 2 full breaths. And then spring all the way back up. Uncurl the toes, release the ball, give your shoulders a little bit of a roll. Okay, so all done everyone. Really nice work as ever. Hopefully you enjoyed that and hopefully you got a little bit more understanding of that concept of core activation in relation to Pilates exercises and why it's good to do and why it's really beneficial for you. So like, subscribe, comment, all that good stuff on the YouTube page or just on anything related to socials or the website related to trainify.tv. And you can always get in touch with me through those and I'll answer any questions that you might have. Have a great rest of your day everyone. See you next week. Bye.